If I had $1 for every time that I said our industry is going to be facing personnel challenges because of people retiring and the lack of a bench of youth that we have coming in, well, I'd still be doing this podcast. But that's primarily because I love it. And if I'm being honest, it's not a source of income. It actually is a source of expense. But we've all got an expense and a debt to pay. And that debt is the fact that our industry has not done a great job in the most recent years of recruiting, specifically when it comes to individuals that are entering the workforce. And now that time has caught up to us. And we're seeing a lot of transition. One of the biggest transitions we're seeing is the Great Resignation of the tenured personnel we have in our industry. And this episode is all about that. And more importantly, what needs to be done to correct course. As together, we are building the future. This is the Building the Future podcast. I am your host, the lumberjack, Brett Thorne. On this show, we explore topics including construction, building materials, real estate, remodeling, the housing market, industry news, new products and trends, technology, government, everything you need for building the future. Welcome back to the Building the Future podcast. This is your host, Brett Thorne. And today I have a guest with me that is probably well overdue, as this is an individual that has been in the industry a long time and has a lot of exposure in the industry. So for any of you out there, I'm sure you've probably seen him speak or been on one of his webinars. And it's a pleasure today to welcome to the show from the Misura Group, Mr. Tony Misura.
Thanks, Brett. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been, every time people say, a long time in the industry, I feel an extra wrinkle, right?
I'm dating you just a little bit there, aren't I?
Yeah, well, it is what it is, right? We can say decades now. We can say, multiple, three. It's been a long time. So, but yeah, great industry, great people, and I still get up every day super excited to help people in the industry, and it really feels good to have a vocation that is, you say a calling, right? But just something I'm super passionate about, and I seem to find endless energy for all the time. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And that is one of the amazing things about this industry is that everybody that's in it, everybody truly has a passion and a love for it. I mean, you can see that in the people. I mean, this truly is a industry that people are just, they're so humble and they're just so willing to be there and to help, and they just love what they do. And I think that speaks a lot of volume for what our industry has to offer.
Agreed. Yeah, and kind of, our industry has always been that way. I mean, let's face it, man, it's tough. I mean, what the building product supply chain, specifically at the dealer level, is a really difficult industry. I mean, there's, we can look at any positions or any supply chain challenges, and so oftentimes it comes down on that dealer to really solve those problems, and that just makes for a really challenging environment. And so whether it's your best relationships or those that are formed in a foxhole or formed freshman year on campus when everyone's afraid, there's kind of that, there's just that camaraderie, I think, that happens of, well, hey, how did you handle this situation? And that's, we've Michael Collins with building building partners advisory he and I come together and we do an executive dinner for leaders in the LBM space, and I have a toast every year, and it's the same thing. It's like, hey, just make friends, share stories, and share kind of your biggest achievements and your biggest mistakes, and likely you're going to help somebody on the other side of the table that this is all new to them, to a new approach to the same problem. So yeah.
And what we're talking about sharing, because there's possibly one, maybe two listeners out there that aren't familiar with you. So for those two, could you give us just a little bit of your background, kind of telling us, how you got to where you are and what it is exactly that you're doing?
Yeah, so Missouri Group is a recruiting firm that works specifically for the building products industry supply chain, right? We don't work with general contractors. We mainly work with dealers. Dealers make up way more than 50%, probably 80% of the projects that we work nationally, from Long Island, New York, all the way through to Hawaii, and a lot of leadership positions, because that's where the greatest impact can be brought to any organization, whether it's a sales manager, general manager, vice president, president leadership type roles. And then we do some two-step work too with the wholesalers, and then a little bit in the manufacturing too, as we can. Buyers and commodity procurement, that's been a real hot project, as well as product managers and the like. So yeah, helping, just really simply helping industry leaders build excellent teams is what we're really passionate about. Our team is geared for. I started in the industry when I was 18 years old, senior in high school. Threw out my pitching arm, and thought I'd unload lumber cars with my buddies. I grew up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which was where the headquarters for Menards. And I went and filled out that application, and somehow I ended up being John Menard's personal office boy. And that's how I started in the industry. And then I became their youngest operator at 23 years old, and then opened up a second location at 24. And there's just a number of things that I learned along the way of, kind of some tough situations of how, I really wanted to be in a place to help really good people find good companies and to work for, and loved the building product space. And so took that knowledge and took that network, and started recruiting back in the late '90s. So
Wow, and I love that where you kind of took the industry that you were already involved in, and then something you had a passion for was, like you said, helping the people find the positions and everything, and that's kind of what you took your passion and formed it into the industry you were in.
yeah, I've told the story a number of times. Those that have heard me present. So I'm 18 years old, and in the Menards organization, all the executives had to work mandatory Saturday mornings, right? And remember, everybody punched a clock in that culture. Vice presidents, everybody, you had to punch a clock, right? You had an hourly wage, and then your incentives then were kind of on top of that. And there was a vice president of legal at the time. I thought maybe potentially I would be an attorney, and the vice president of legal is Warren Johnson, and just took a liking to him, and he would wax on Saturday mornings, and kind of I would listen and write everything down, and map things out. And then as I career progressed, I left the corporate headquarters, was out in locations, and Warren was someone that was always really endearing to me, and he had a heart attack, and I was just floored that this had happened. And then he was John Menard's roommate in college, so at the time, the two of them, he probably had 25, 30 years in the company at this time. And John fired him because he had a heart attack, and then hired him back to mow his lawn on his 8-acre lakefront property up in Hayward, Wisconsin, with a push mower, and paid him $5.25 an hour. And Warren took the job. And remember, he's the vice president of legal for this large growing organization. And if anybody knows what northern Wisconsin is like in July, all grass does is grow 24 hours a day, right? So the idea of worn with a push mower. This was much deeper psychology than, this was not this was not anything therapeutic at all, right? This was a punishment, and to me, it was just a very clear sign of what the culture was that I'd signed up for, and and also at the same point on how really strong, powerful, capable individuals can be really taken advantage of and put in really difficult situations. And I didn't like that. And so just really simply started the business with the premise to help people find, help good people find good companies. And that was, and that's still, really, really deep set in our core with what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, you saw the writing on the wall. It was sounds like it was big and bold. It was maybe, painted on there.
Yeah, well, I remember at this time, and I was young, and I still was there. I think I was there, 13 years, 12, 13 years before I left, right? So, um, um, there's a whether you want to boiling frog or whatever it is. I just was so young into the culture, and just kind of thought that, well, this is how companies operate, and then you just start collecting the data points, and then all of a sudden this event happened. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right, right? That doesn't speak well to me. So when individuals think about what they can do from a recruiting perspective, what they can do to retain talent, really, the culture and core values of the organization are really critical, really, really very effective at what an organization is looking to drive.
And that brings up the topic that I really want to talk about today, and something that's we've been seeing throughout the industry, and something I've actually brought up multiple times on my show for the ever since I started this, since day one a couple of years ago, the Great Resignation. And that is our industry. We are seeing a lot of people resign and retire. Of course, I know there's a lot of, in all industries right now, there's a lot of people moving jobs and changing stuff because let's face it, it is a employees market currently. But our industry has really been struggling a lot because if we're being honest with ourselves, we have not done a great job of continuing to recruit younger people, especially, and I think a lot of the states all the way back to the Great Recession. Because if you remember, it was our industry that really took the biggest hit during that time.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of companies, we lost a lot of people, and we
Mhm.
really ever since then have never rebuilt those benches to say of younger people coming in. And at that time, I mean, when people were closing the doors, when people were being laid off, it was a lot of times the younger people that didn't have many years of experience. That and for them it was easy too because now they could transition to other things because they didn't have a lot of knowledge and they didn't have a lot of roots in the industry specifically, or maybe even their own financial situations, to where we lost all of that youth, in my opinion. And here we are now. We're faced with the fact that we don't have a very deep bench at all. And then we've got a lot of tenure, which is great to have. I mean, our industry, that's something phenomenal about industries. We have so many years of experience in our personnel. But the problem now is that a lot of that personnel is starting to retire or they're going to part time or, and especially after the last 18 months, people are exhausted. I can speak from our industry alone. This year, we've had 3 people retire and only one of them was a long-term plan. The other two just decided, hey, you know what? In 30 days, in 60 days, in 90 days, I'm ready to hang it up, or I'm ready to go to just part time, just because they're just tired. And I get it. They're great employees, and we're happy to work with them any way they want if they still want to continue to work on a part time basis. But I understand that. Yeah, you know what? They've put in their time and they're ready to go. And you know what? After the last 18 months, we've all been grinding. There's no question about it. And don't get me wrong. I mean, we're lucky that our industry has been favored so well during this pandemic. And I feel terrible for the
Yeah.
hospitality industries and the travel industries. But at the same time, we're the ones that really took the hit a little over a decade ago. So
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
Yeah, I
know. We
don't.
could have lived through another one of those.
Right.
So
Yeah, I don't.
yeah,
I don't think so. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's
What's your take on all that? That's my perspective on kind of where we're
yeah.
at in this Great Resignation. What's your take and thoughts on all that, Tony?
What a question, Brett. I mean, there's just so many different angles from it. One, I mean, first, let's celebrate the fact that from an industry perspective, we've always been one that is not you know, to get promoted has nothing to do with your pedigree or with where you went to school or where you graduated, right? You don't have to have that master's degree in order to become an executive, right? It's much more. Do you understand the industry? Do you understand the dynamics? Do you understand what leadership is, and kind of what the problems are on the job site, and how you can kind of keep the ship moving in the right direction? And myself, I'm dyslexic and have ADD. I went to college and took two classes, intro to anthropology and macroeconomics, and said, okay, that's enough of this. And I just kind of dove out and went full time into the workforce, and kind of plowed my way through it, and much more of an autodidactic than anything. And that's great. Our industry is terrific for really providing opportunities for individuals that want to bust their tail and really work really hard to achieve. Can't take that away from our industry, but our industry does not do a very good job at all of attracting talent or allowing talent to move from the other industry segments, be it the steel industry, the oil industry, be it the IT, industrial, major manufacturing. As with those industries, as they go through peaks and valleys, that workforce commonly flows back and forth pretty effortlessly, right? Our industry is not that way because of the perceived depth of knowledge, nuance to the industry space that's needed, and because of the limitation in our leadership group to be excellent at teaching and developing in an accelerated fashion those higher points of knowledge needed to be effective in the industry. So when the downturn hit, you're absolutely right. A buddy of mine, Russ Catherine, says, hey, we ate our seed corn. We've eliminated that whole 25-year-old to 35-year-old class in 2008 to 2010. They all left the industry because they had families to feed, they had careers to build, and they were young enough and flexible enough and malleable enough to head to another industry space. And and it took probably 5 years before the industry really started gaining ground again. And by that time, those individuals were well entrenched in another career path, and so they didn't come back. And so here we sit, right? What, 13, 15 years later, and we don't have that leadership. That's gone. I mean, those 25-year-olds that otherwise would be 40-year-olds taking on more leadership responsibilities just aren't there. So the downturn for our industry was a double whammy, as you'd stated. We got punched super hard. I had friends in healthcare that were buying homes and going on vacations and you know living a normal life back in 2009 when we were like, my God, like what we were facing this Armageddon. Um, and the hospitality industry still did relatively well, right? So turnabout happens, and now the building products industry, specifically the LBM space, is roaring like we have never ever seen before. These are some just amazing times. I've never seen. Usually you'd have the top LBM businesses that would have double-digit EBITDAs, right? Those that have a 9, 10, 11, 12% EBITDAs would be the best LBM industries, LBM companies in the industry. Well, now I'm seeing some of the weakest LBM companies have these double-digit EBITDAs, right? It's like, you want to talk about, a rising tide floating all boats. I mean, there's some boats with some big holes in them that are just, doing it really, really well, right? So the Great Resignation, right? This is, COVID is a huge factor, and an article I'd written recently, just individuals, humans, when they're faced with uh, death, can take some pretty, it's called a midlife crisis, right? I mean, typically that's what happens, right? 50-year-old loses a mother or father or an uncle or someone that that's close to them, and then they start really looking and going, God, who am I and why am I and why do I get up every morning? Why do I take on these challenges? Why do I spend so much time at work when tick tick, right? I don't know how many more weekends or days off I have, or and so people start making some significant changes. And I think the analogy I wrote in my article is usually midlife crisis. Everyone sits around and laughs, right? It's, hey, there's Uncle Larry. He just went out and bought a new Corvette. Oh yeah, he got divorced, and now he's got a new girlfriend, right? And everybody kind of sits back and grabs the popcorn and watches the show and enjoys the entertainment because we've all watched individuals go through this phase. When you put 350 million Americans at the same time through a midlife crisis, shit happens, and it's not all good, right? I mean, people kind of come to this realization that, oh my gosh, what is my life balance really what I want it to be? Well, dovetail into that. Not only is it what I want it to be, but now there's many organizations out there that are creating at-home work opportunities for individuals that either project based or be it actually full W-2 where you can sit at home in your pajamas and earn a really solid income. You can still contribute. You can do all these things that
And
you know
home could be any.
home could be home could be anywhere. Home could be a cabin up in Hayward, Wisconsin, as our family has found out. As real estate prices up there just gone crazy, right? Because people are able to live on the lake, live on the ocean, wherever that is. And that's something that our industry struggles with in a really big way. And Fortune 500 businesses, they don't struggle with that. They understand how important people are, and they really bust their tail to be creative and innovative and open to creating new ways that individuals can contribute effectively and still have a wonderful lifestyle. And we need to catch up to that.
Yeah, and I like how you said, we talked about the pandemic and how it really changed people's perspective on life, what they're doing, how they're spending their time on this earth. I will say on the flip side of that, one of the things that has really fueled our industry in this pandemic is it also changed people's perspective on the home, what the home is. I mean, it was no longer a place to just that you just ate meals and slept. It was now for some people. I mean, it was where they spent 24 hours of the day with their family. It was the office, it was the gymnasium, it was the classroom. So it really changed people's perspective on the value of the home, and I think that helped put a lot of money into it, saying, "Hey, my home is so much more to us and our family now. We need that extra space. We want that deck. We want to paint it the colors we want it to be that are relaxing to us." So I agree with you 100% that the pandemic has really shifted people's mindsets on their life, their home, everything. It's amazing, like you said, 350 million people now all think differently.
I completely agree. In fact, one data point on that, right, is Home Depot's stock price. So Home Depot stock, um, um, by the way, for anyone that's in the industry, if you don't follow Home Depot stock price, you're not even trying to be smarter with kind of how you approach your strategy moving forward, right? Because there's a tremendous amount of smart people that try to forecast what's going to happen in that industry space. And granted, the LBM space is selling to general contractors, right? But there's a definite connection between basements getting finished out after homes get built or decks being put on or what have you. That's a great way to track the macro of what is going to what the trends are in the LBM space. But regardless, so the stock performed wonderfully during the COVID downturn, right? Because as you stated, individuals were going to be focused on the home, and then there was all these people, all these super smart financial people that said, you know what, the Home Depot price, it's going to retract, it's going to come back down because now as people go back to work, they're no longer going to be, they're going to be going on vacations, they're going to be eating out instead of, putting on that new deck or doing that remodel. And what's happened to their stock price? It's only continued to go up. Why has it continued to go up? because there's always more things that people want to do to their homes. It's like an endless list. It's like, I don't have the hot tub put in. Wait a minute, that outdoor shower, we got to get the outdoor shower done, right? It's like a new roof, I mean, and as real estate prices have gone up, of course, it's just given individuals that much more resource that they can tap into from a secondary debt or a second mortgage perspective to continue that trend. So as to your point, yeah, how individuals spend time at the home and how important that is. The world is really coming to recognize what that is today as we look at where those dollars are flowing.
Sure. And I've said even before this pandemic, you know, having a roof over your head is pretty damn important. Ranks right up there with oxygen. So,
Yeah,
like you said, you're always going to have work done on the home. It may not be necessarily for your creature comforts like your hot tub and stuff, but like that roof, guess what? When that roof needs to be replaced, it's got to be replaced. That Disney vacation may have to be put off another year because that roof needs to get replaced.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's a vital part of life. Having a roof over your head is so substantial.
it is, and so home ownership investment, and that's the backbone, of course, of our industry space, and it's one that's supported by thankfully our government and also the kind of tax policies and what that is, and you know household formation being where that is, and the demographics of the number of people that are in their late 30s and 40s are still looking to purchase that new home because we're so far behind from a inventory standpoint. I mean, it's a very it's a bullish it's a ever even the bears are still bullish on the housing industry, on the LBM space for the next for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So
And Tony, before I drag us too far down a rabbit hole here, um, back on the topic of the Great Resignation. You recently wrote a piece called "The 10 Steps to Thwart the Great Resignation."
yeah. Hmm.
What can you share on that?
Yeah, so trying to having conversations with owners and leaders as they navigate this. So many of them want to kind of come back to, well, there's those people that are at home and refuse to come back to work because they're just coming up with excuses. They're living off of the Joe Biden's dime, and they're just if you look at the numbers, when you look at the numbers of job openings in the space, and you look at the percentage, the very low percentage of people that are sitting at home just collecting a check, it doesn't add up. So you
And
can
those
tell
probably aren't the people you want on your staff anyways.
potentially not, right? Yes, agreed. But the point is, that might make you feel better because you're working hard and somebody else might not be, but that's not going to solve your your most strategic decision in your company of getting those open positions filled. So really, and I got to tell you, leaders, people, humans, we don't like we don't like looking at our mistakes, and we certainly anytime we have an opportunity to point someplace else, be it a macro thing or be it just some large overreaching that it's somebody else's problem. That's something that we just as humans have a habit of doing. So when it comes to hiring and retaining talent, most leaders don't even track the number of people that they hire that leave. They don't track their turnover. They don't have any surveys set up at all to survey either the people that are staying. I mean, the best part, most important thing to work from a hiring perspective is make sure you keep the people you have. So, and the only way you can do that is by creating some place for them to be very open and honest, a safe place for them to communicate to the leadership group. I'm unhappy about this situation, and a lot of and just out of fear that some of these organizations, leaders and owners, that they feel that they can't solve those problems. They just choose to kind of be an ostrich and bury their head in the sand. So number one thing, survey the people, create a 1-800 line, create a blank private email that individuals can go through and log on to, and you'd be shocked, you'd be surprised at what you'd learn, and really how how easy it is to create an environment that's going to be, healthy and happy for your employees and for people.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny you mentioned that. I actually heard a deal the other day and I heard the term stay interview, where, obviously people are very familiar with the interview process for new people coming on, exit interviews for those that are choosing to leave,
mhm.
maybe on their own will. But now the new term, I think, was stay interview for those that are staying with your company, what it is they like and what it is the benefits so that they can figure out how to best replicate those.
Correct. Yeah, and just really simply for those that have gone through any type of continuous improvement methodology, whatever it is. We don't. I mean, we have to get into the. You don't have to be a black belt in Six Sigma to just really simply just go. Okay, here's the problem, and then let's make sure we ask the five whys to really figure out what the root cause of the problem is, and then once the problem's identified, let's figure out what we can do to solve that. Um, but owners and leaders, people really have to start really valuing that talent and taking great steps out there to improve it, to improve, I guess, what the measurement that what it is that they're offering to keep people. So you career path growth, career pathing. If every position within the organization, whether it's a truss plant, someone on the truss plant line, whether it's a truck driver, whether it's inside sales, um, needs to understand exactly what potentially their career path growth can be. What does that look like? Incentive compensation setup in each of these positions. There should be an opportunity for individuals to self-measure what their performance is, and to have first tier, second tier, third tier compensation based on that productivity. That I mean, people want to be able to own what their economic rewards are, and you'll find individuals committed at a much higher level when they have that opportunity, that transparency. But to do that sometimes requires leaders to be more open about the P&L, more open about what the expenses and the revenues are, and what drives those, and what are the practices, what are we doing that's moving the numbers the direction we want, and sharing that with everyone else, and being open and transparent with that financial transparency is incredibly powerful for teams. But that's something as an industry know we're not very good at, and that'll continue to hamstring us as we try to attract talent. People want to know. People want to know, and it's like I tell owners, it's like, so you don't share your financials because are you embarrassed that you're making too much money, or are you embarrassed that you're not making enough? And which is it? You know, just had a conversation we got all these owners are calling me going, oh my gosh, compensations are changing at a really rapid pace. I'm getting pressure here. Can you help me map out what you think general managers, multi-unit, regional, vice president, residents, help me map out kind of the compensation, what that should look like. Just did a conversation with a $200-300 million LBM business owner yesterday. And he's like, Tony, I'm not sure what I should do. And I'm like, hey, there's three different vectors that drive compensation, right? First is just whether or not individuals are well, let's just call it the non-monetary rewards, right? Are you happy? Are you growing? Do you have a mentor? Is the position, do you have friends at work? Is a position near your fishing hole or where mom and dad live? Or, I mean, we can come up with a long list of non-monetary motives. Can I ride my bike to work? Can I take a break and ride maybe it's just a long list of things that companies can do to really influence that non-monetary. The next is how the market values that particular expertise and talent, right? And that's a separate vector of how other companies, other industries, where are they rewarding that individual? And then the third is, what is the revenue or profits that particular position is accountable for? And this individual had a trying to walk them through it. Is he had a $25 million business with a 13 one of the businesses $25 million with 13% EBITDA. I'm like, okay, so if you lose that leader, if he leaves, what happens? Well, we've got a backlog, so probably first year we're probably okay. Second year we lose 50% of the profit. In the third year, it's probably, it's probably red. Like, okay, perfect. Now you know exactly how much of it you need this guy. You need this guy. He's like, yeah, but we've got a bonus that's capped at two times base. I'm like, okay, I got it. Is that working? He's like, well, no, it's not working. I'm like, well, why not? He's like, well, because it's so damn profitable this year. It's making so much money. I'm like, let me get this straight. You're you're making so much more money, but you've got a hard time with increasing somebody's bonus compensation because you're making too much money. I'm like, buddy, man. I mean, talk about high class problems. Like, I mean, if the leader or the position, could be a leader, could be a salesperson, whatever, right? But you've got to feel comfortable opening up that and empowering individuals to the financial outcomes to the business, and being open and honest with that. He's like, well, I don't want to set a standard that then all of a sudden, if there's a downturn, everybody's
Sure.
trying to I
They
get
got this expectation of the bar's been set so high.
our bar's been set so high, but and all of a sudden, 2008 is going to come back and bite us again. How many people, how many deaths do you have to go through? Again, why keep reliving 2008? If that happens again, guess what? Everyone's going to go, holy crap, my bonus is going to be, I'm not going to have one, right? And because, everyone will flex and understand what the status of the economy is, right? I mean, it's foolish. It's completely foolish. And I understand PTSD. I get all that, right? But there's these owners and leaders that still have PTSD over 2008 and are trying to bellwether, kind of feather their business model, their compensation plan, so it can protect them when the next one happens. No, you're going to lose all your talent because there's other leaders and owners out there that are just going and blowing. I mean, they're driving forward, rewarding their individuals for the profits that they're gaining. And then, hey, if something happens, they will adjust their compensation structure to that new norm from a macroeconomic perspective, and people will respect that. I mean, what? Who would be upset? I mean, who would be upset? I mean, Brett, if you and I are in business together, and all of a sudden we're not making as much money, you and I are going to look at each other and go, "No, we can't take as much money out this year. We got to figure out here how we're going to solve this problem."
Sure. And let's look back at this since we're talking about 2008. They quickly forget that, 2005, 2006, 2007, those were amazing years. And you know what? Yeah, there was a downturn, there was a peak and there was a valley, and there's always going to be peaks and valleys. And yet somehow they managed to get through it then. And when it happens again, they'll shift, they'll adapt like they did the last time, and they'll get through it again.
And by the way, the S&P 500 recovered in 18 months, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it never came back, right? It was 18 months.
That's
And
why it was a recession and not a depression, because it did not last that long.
correct. If you're able to go ahead and not touch your stock holdings, you came back to where you were before 18 months later, and things kept moving forward. So there's this Chicken Little crap that is really, I work super hard with owners trying to get them to really not let that continue. I mean, you die 1,000 deaths. Let's deal with the clear and present, what we're dealing with right now, and maybe what we can look at midterm. This black swan stuff, like, you know, my mentor stopped me. He's like, black swans. Yeah, okay, perfect. Sure, you want to think about that. Have some contingent plan, but don't build your business around a black swan thing. He's like, well, like, all you're doing is just creating doom. Like, why would you do that? No one, and that's certainly not going to attract people, right? Individuals want to be with businesses that are growing. So that's the other part of it, right? You cannot keep talent if you're not growing. You simply can't, because individuals are looking for opportunities. And I really applaud those businesses that are out there, greenfielding or doing acquisitions, because what that means is that everyone in your organization now says, hey, that means there's new opportunities for me going forward. If you're not growing, that means there's not new opportunities. And then what that means is then you're going to attract talent or people that are going to be happy with status quo. And status quo is not where the top 50% in producers want to be. So
So it sounds like, what, your services go much further than just helping to recruit and onboard new personnel. You guys sounds like you guys can offer, helping companies develop that culture, help companies develop those compensation structures in order to be more relevant in the marketplace. What else do you guys offer at Missouri Group?
well, it's this kind of you can't. I guess we kind of came to this from a entrepreneurial perspective of just wanting to help companies out. And typical recruiting firm says, "Oh, perfect, hire this individual. We got this candidate for you. Hire them." We said, "Well, hey, hang on a second. By the way, we best practice and post mortem everything that we do." And we realized early on that the larger the talent pool is, the better the hires became. And so we went, okay, well, perfect. Now we're just going to set a standard. We have to have 5 people in every talent pool. And all of a sudden, our rework went way down to single digits, and our success rate and repeat customer rate went way much higher. Well, then there's other things too that go into just helping owners maybe clear some brush out of the way ahead of time before you make that hire, whether it's clear job descriptions, understanding the strategy of the business and kind of how they're going forward, understand what their ability is to implement that strategy. Deployment's a really big thing. We can talk about doing things smarter, but it's whether or not you've got a leader in place that can really be effective at doing that. And then helping companies kind of assess their leadership that they have, and steps that they can do to improve that leadership moving forward, from a business side. So we enjoy really working with leaders and owners, and just building better companies. And there's a if you look at your P&L, measuring financials, look at your balance sheet, measuring your assets and debts. And, culture is something that can be measured too. And the culture, if you have individuals that are engaged, so do a survey on your engagement. That's a number. You're going to know how many, what percentage of your people are engaged, just like a P&L, right? And if you look at what your turnover rates are doing, that's a number too in each position, right? And then you look at the number of people that are being developed and promoted. So for us, when we're looking at leaders, we're asking, well, what was the P&L when you inherited? Well, it was a $40 million business with a 4% EBITDA. Perfect. And what was it when you left? It was a $60 million in sales, and it had an 8% EBITDA. Excellent. Terrific. What was your turnover when you started? What was the engagement percentage? How many people did you promote and develop? And if they don't score high on all those numbers, they're not top talent, right? So be aware of leaders in your team that might be bringing the financials in, but they're not developing other people. And what happens is in those types of situations, one, if they leave or retire or whatever that is, your business is dead. That location is dead in the water because so much is evolving around that one individual person. Two, you're not really growing. Your culture is not something that's going to be super competitive, that's going to attract that talent space. So the perception of what a great leader is way more than the financial performance. And culture is not nebulous. It is something that can be measured. So trying to help companies understand that and exercise that is part of it, is part of the practice. So.
And that's truly something that organizations can and probably should be working on all the time, regardless of whether they've got gaps they need to fill, as far as hiring and recruiting. They should always be trying to improve their culture, improve their organization overall, because then when they do have to fill, and hopefully as that improves, they have less gaps to fill because now you have probably better retention of employees, but then you now are more appealing to those potential new employees.
Yeah, really. I mean, really simply, the great leaders don't have hiring problems. Simple. I mean, great leaders are super effective at attracting excellent people and creating excellent environments for those individuals to perform in, and are a magnet for talent. It's easy to go through and pick out who the best leader would be if you've got someone that's 6'8" walking through a crowd that really clearly is the better leader in the group, right? But all of a sudden, if you've got a group of of leaders that are, really, equal, similar in maybe experience, similar in kind of skills and expertise, but then all of a sudden, if you kind of if you look at it from this perspective, how many people have they trained and developed and promoted? That's a really distinctive trait that stands out significantly. Of you know, and you can throw this up. You and I are leaders, right? Okay, well, perfect. Put us next to Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, or list off all Jamie Dimon with J.P. Morgan, right? I mean, the, there's a completely different level of people who are going to look at Jamie Dimon that's going to want to work for me, right? And that's that's a very really effective way to try to understand who. So if you've got someone, if you get a leader on your team that has a turnover problem, it's the leader's problem. That's he's the cause of that. If he's not the cause of it, he certainly isn't the solution. He or she is certainly not the solution, right? And so that's another that's another aspect too of what we've really taken on. 20% of our positions that we filled, we started just marking this, and it's not so much of this has been internal. In fact, we've kind of been really careful from a marketing perspective as to how forward we want to be about this, right? But Michelle Berger, who's been on the team for the past 16, 17 years, just went down and participated in the HB Dealer She Session, basically women professionals in the industry space. You mentioned before, I think Rika and Thea and Dina Cordova. You've enjoyed some good podcast sessions with them, and I know they've done some really great work with us. But 20% of our positions were filled with women professionals. 5% were filled with women in leadership. In ladies make up more than 50% of the population base. So if organizations are really looking to try to make a big impact on their hiring success, put ladies in a place where they can be developing into leadership roles. Because what's the adage? If you can see it, you can be it. If you've got young 18, 20-year-old ladies girls that can come into your business and can look to somebody who's in an operations management, dispatch manager, drivers, salespeople, what have you, and can see an opportunity for a career path for them, you're going to attract more people to your position. And that's a very easy, simple fix that our industry has just great opportunities to grow and make a big impact on.
And for individuals or corporations out there that need assistance with any of these services that Missouri Group offers, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, just reach out. Our website, MissouriGroup.com. You can reach out to any of our teams. You certainly can see us on our LinkedIn profiles. Gabby, Michelle, Laura, Nolly, all of us do a terrific job of reaching out and being available to help individuals guide their professional careers, helping them kind of understand what their skills and traits might be and how they can polish some areas and close some gaps to get to that next level. And then also owners and leaders that are looking to solve problems, helping them come up with new and creative, innovative ideas and how they can be effective and solve their talent challenges.
And Tony, I want to be respectful of your time today, but before I let you go, do you have any closing thoughts for the listeners?
Yeah, it's a great time to be in our industry. It's super exciting,
isn't it? Though,
I mean, holy man! I mean, the lumber prices and what's happening out there, and when we look at dealers, LBM dealers, there are those dealers that are box in, box out, unit in, unit out. And I understand that there's a really complex responsibility to the outside salespeople that, really, are they project managers? Are they logistics specialists? Are they product specialists, right? In helping building performance but also really the labor constraints. So as difficult as your labor constraint might be as an LBM dealer, know that the labor constraints on the job site will always be more difficult. And why? You've got more transient workers. You've got, you're in the elements more, right? You've got to, deal with the weather situations, and it's a much more unsafe environment. And just those factors create a pattern that has a much higher turnover rate. So anything that you can do as an LBM leader to support or minimize the amount of on-site labor is going to improve your value proposition to the customer base. It's going to improve your strategy. When you improve your value proposition, that allows you to increase your margins. So instead of thinking about going out and grabbing more sales, think of it from this perspective. There's only so much profit, there's only so much EBITDA in the supply chain. And some of that's the general contractors, some of that's the LBM dealer, some of it's the two-step wholesaler, and some of it's the manufacturer. And there's opportunities for LBM dealer space to go out and grab more profit by making it easier for general contractors to build that structure. And of course, trust plans have been around for a long time. It definitely decreases the risk, increases the safety on the job site. And there's not many rafter markets left in the U.S. So trusses, that's one area. Wall panels, certainly, that's another area, right? Pre-manufactured framing. But there's a long list of other areas where individuals, I should say, in the LBM space, can really help reduce the labor rates on job sites. And basically, that's thinking strategically, that's actioning strategically, and those companies that do that make more money. And with that more money, they're able to pay their people higher wages. And so now they've got greater profits, but now they've got better people. And it's those organizations that are gaining share. And if you don't embrace those things, you're just going to end up getting acquired by one of those that are. So if anybody has any questions on that, man, reach out. I'm more than happy to help you break down what the market is for you, or at least help you kind of establish kind of a method and a plan to break down what your market is and where your position is, and steps that you can take as a business to gain more profit share.
Tony, I want to thank you again for taking time today and for everything that you do for building the future.
Brett, thank you, and thank you for everything that you do. This is terrific. I mean, this is a terrific forum to reach out and connect best practices in the industry, and to help others win. Thank you.
This is the Building the Future podcast. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please like and share. You can find out more at our website, www.buildingthefuturepodcast.com. Together we are building the future.